it's Jordan. Welcome back to my channel. Today is the final day of October, which means it is Halloween, although I'm sure that you are seeing this quite a while after Halloween because I'm busy and don't have time to do anything. I am a lion this year, for those of you who are wondering, because I've had quite a few people ask me if I'm a chipmunk, and I mean, I don't get chipmunk. Maybe I just don't know chipmunks that well. Anyway, let's just get right into the October wrap up, shall we? There's this hair. Is this attached to my head? Because it's like right in my eyeball. What is going on? I think it is attached to my head. Yep, that definitely hurt. Anyway, the first book that I read in October was Dark Wild Night by Christina Lauren. This is the third book in the Wild Seasons trilogy. It's a new adult companion contemporary 4-book series that follows 3 best friends who, after graduating college, decide to go to Las Vegas to celebrate. And while they're in Las Vegas, they meet this group of boys. The 2 groups end up spending a wild, rowdy night together and waking up the next morning with some consequences involving their relationships with each other. Each book in the series follows one of the couples from that night. So in this one, we are following Oliver and Lola. This is chronologically the 3rd book. So these 2 have been friends for the last 2 books. They've had this really great friendship going. However, things start to shift and change, and they're questioning their friendship and if they really want to be friends or if they want to step into the bounds of being in a relationship, but what that would mean for their relationship and for the friend group dynamic. This one is definitely the most like slow burn. It was a lot of like, will they, won't they? It's definitely like the sweetest build up to a romance in comparison to the other 2. And I also really found Lola to be an extremely relatable character. Like, she just makes decisions and acts in certain ways that I myself find myself doing. It was just like, wow, that is something that I do and something that I have to work on and that I struggle with. And I get you, girl, I feel ya. But I also found that this was not my favorite of the 3. I don't really know why. These books are just so much fun to read. They're so enjoyable. They're so fast-paced. They're like addicting, and I absolutely adore this series. I feel like I've been talking about this for a really long time. Have I? All in all, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, and I highly recommend. I'm sure this will be in my favorite books of the year for sure. The next book I read was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Nope. That's not what this is. The next book I read was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. This is the illustrated edition with Jim Kay as the illustrator, and this is obviously a reread for me. My mom read it to me when I was about 6. I read it again in college, and that was 7 years ago. So I forgot so much of the story. There's so many things that happen in this book that don't happen in the movie, and I'm much more familiar with the movies. I've seen them way more, and it was so nice to, oh, I must just knock the camera over, to revisit the original source material and to re-experience it in this new way with the beautiful illustrations, which I absolutely loved. It added such a different element to the story, and it made it so much more kid-friendly. I know it's technically a middle grade book, but the illustrations just made it feel that much more middle grade, and I would have loved to have had this when I was first reading Harry Potter because I was at the age where I was still reading picture books. I can't wait for the younger generations to grow up with these editions because I think it's going to make a really big difference in their enjoyment because I loved it so much more. And I think that they're gonna love it so much more. I can't believe it's been so long since I read Harry Potter, and I just feel like it hasn't been that long, but then in reality it has, because Harry Potter is so just like a norm to your daily life. Like, it's just always there, especially when you're involved in something like BookTube. Harry Potter is like a daily part of your life, but then you haven't read the book in so long, and then you reread it and you're like, wow, I forgot so much of this, and I didn't realize so much of it was different. Obviously gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. So also this month I participated in a readathon. I was participating in a Spookathon. I did an entire vlog of the week. I'll go ahead and link it on the screen if you want to check it out. I had a very poor Spookathon. Like, it did not go according to plan in the slightest. So one of the books that I completed for Spookathon, which doesn't complete any of the challenges for Spookathon, wasn't on my TBR. And on a whim, I just was like, I'm gonna listen to this. And that was Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This is a reread for me. I read this back in 2015, right at the beginning of my channel. I think this is one of the very first books I ever reviewed on my channel. I'm listening to it on audio in preparation to finally finish the dang series. Like, I'm gonna finally read Winter. But this time I didn't want to read it because I wasn't really invested enough to spend my time reading the book. So I listened to it on audio, and these books are phenomenal on audio. I absolutely love the narrator, and she really brought Cinder to life for me. One of my biggest complaints about the series in general is that the characters aren't super memorable for me. I don't find them to be very lasting. They don't sit with me. They don't like stick with me when I think of my favorite characters of all time or my favorite relationship, which is ironic because that's one of like the biggest loves of this series. Does that make sense? When people talk about this series, they talk about the characters and how much they love them. It just didn't reach me in that same way, and I felt like something's wrong with me because I don't like these characters as much as everybody else. The audiobook really brought them to life. It really gave them sass and wit and personality that I didn't remember reading as I read it on the page. It was just so different listening to it. I don't know what it is, but I just really love their narration style of these books. If I was just reviewing the narration style on its own, I'd give it a 5 out of 5 stars, but Cinder as a whole, I give a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read this month was the only book that I completed off of my Spookathon TBR, and that was Pretty Girls by Karin Slaughter. The only Spookathon book that I got to, because I am the worst. This is an adult mystery thriller novel that follows two sisters. It's dual perspective, and when they were in their teens, their oldest sister, Julia, went missing. And for the last 28 years, there's been no real breaks in the case. It really had an effect on the two sisters still living's relationship. One of the sisters is now married to a billionaire living a very lavish lifestyle in Atlanta, and the other sister is a single mom. She is dating an ex-con. At the start of the book, the sister who's married to the millionaire, her husband gets murdered. And just before her husband was murdered, a young girl about the same age and looks as their oldest sister also goes missing. So somehow this new teenager who's gone missing, the husband's murder, and the missing sister from 28 years ago are all connected. I've never read a Karin Slaughter book before, but this was so good. I really enjoyed my time reading this book. If you like Gillian Flynn, I actually think you'd really like Karin Slaughter, or vice versa. It was gruesome, it was twisted, the webs were so intricately woven, and the characters were so dark. They're all bad people doing bad things and trying to justify it for the right reasons to themselves. I really liked the sisters dynamic and how their relationship evolved over the book, and how the mystery for the oldest sister's death was revealed. Karin Slaughter presents you with like option A of this is what probably most likely happened, and then she kind of like veers you off to the side. She's like, actually no, this is more of likely to have happened. So then you start believing option B, and then she like flips it all back around on you and brings up option A again, and you're just like, what? Every new plot twist, every new reveal that came around, I was just shocked. Even though I shouldn't have been, because I should have been like, well, of course this character has sucked the whole book. Why should this surprise me? But there kept being moments of redemption for these characters. You kept giving the characters the benefit of the doubt, and then in the end, you shouldn't have. If you don't generally consume murder mystery media, then I would be warned going into this that it is very violent and very graphic, and there are incredibly touchy, sensitive subjects covered in this novel. If you like crime, mystery, thriller, adult suspense novels, and you have not read a Karin Slaughter book, you should read a Karin Slaughter book. I ended up giving Pretty Girls 4 out of 5 stars. So after that, the next book that I read was A Madness So Discreet by Mindy McGinnis, which is actually the first book I started in October, but the last book that I finished, because it's awful and I hated it. That's a little harsh. I didn't hate it. I was just incredibly bored. I follow this girl, her name is Grace. She's from a society family, and she gets pregnant out of wedlock. And at the time of the novel, which is in the 1880s, I believe, this is, you know, absolute blasphemy. So her parents put her into an insane asylum as a way to kind of like hide away the pregnancy. And something happens at the insane asylum while she is there that puts her on a very different course. So it sounds like a really interesting novel, and I was really excited to read this, but it was just really boring. I was so bored for so much of the book. The first like 25 to 30% is spent in the first insane asylum. You don't understand the point of it. The actual point with the crime investigation doesn't come in until like after a third of the book, and I was just so bored, and I was questioning what I was reading and why it was important and what the point was, and I didn't like it. I was so just meh. Grace was not a very compelling character. I didn't really find her relationships with the other inmates to be very compelling, or with the doctor to be very compelling. Mindy McGinnis is known for writing very poignant novels that have a very important commentary on some social concept. I feel like this one had that too, like there was something being discussed. I just couldn't really find what the discussion was. I feel like we were kind of dancing around it. It wasn't as straightforward and in your face as The Female of the Species. Unfortunately, I just found this book to be very mediocre and I just really didn't like it, and I ended up giving it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. It was not a good way to end my reading month. So those are all the books that I read in the month of October. Let's talk about the TV shows that I watched this month. Did I watch more than one? What month did Fuller House come out in? Was that this month or was that last month? Did I talk about Fuller House? Watched Fuller House this month, the first 9 episodes of season 3. Apparently they've decided that they're going to release season 3 in like parts 1 and 2, so we only got half of the season, and 9 episodes of Fuller House is just not enough. This show is so much fun. It's so cheesy, wholesome, and down to earth. If you go into this and you don't want cheese and corn, then why are you watching Fuller House? Because there's going to be cheese and there's going to be corn, which is exactly what Fuller House should have, in my opinion. I cannot wait until they get the rest of it. They need to release all of it at one time, to be honest. Every time I watch Fuller House, I just find myself grinning ear to ear. I'm always laughing. I always leave watching it in the best mood. It's just such a good pick-me-up show. If you're ever in a bad place in life, you want one of those like comfort shows, Fuller House is a excellent comfort show. I also watched a couple episodes of The Gifted, which is on Fox, I believe. This is a TV show version of X-Men. I was enthralled with the first 2 episodes. The first 2 episodes were all that was available when I first picked it up to watch it. It's the X-Men, and I love the X-Men so much. It takes place at a time after both the Brotherhood and the X-Men no longer exist, like the group of X-Men, to protect the mutants in society as a whole. So the mutants are being treated very unfairly. There are a lot of laws and regulations on them. They are being rounded up and kidnapped for various experiments to put them into prison. It follows a family who both the kids end up being mutants, and the father works in the anti-mutant department of the government and trying to round up and persecute them and put them in jail. And in an attempt to save his children, contacts the mutant underground. He tries to go into hiding to escape into Mexico through this group, and unfortunately they get caught. I really enjoyed the first 2 episodes. They were exactly what I would want from an X-Men TV show. Now let's go ahead and talk about the movies that I saw this month. I think I only saw one new movie this month, and that was Kingsman: The Golden Circle, which is the sequel to Kingsman: The Secret Service. I left the theater with like great thoughts, positive energy. It was a fun time. I really enjoyed the storyline. It was very kooky. Just like in the first one, it has a very unique camera style and editing style that they do for these movies, and I liked that they carried it into the second movie. Really enjoyed the play on the Americanized version of Kingsman. Here in the States, they are called the Statesmen, and they own a brewery, which just felt so fitting, and it played on a lot of like British and American stereotypes, and it was really funny. It was very aware of itself, so it was like making fun of itself. Villain in this movie though was, well, the villain in the first movie was also really weird. They have very weird villains that are trying to achieve very weird things and have very odd motivations. The only thing that kind of bothered me was there was this one method of killing people that happened multiple times in the movie. It was very gruesome and disgusting, and they used it like 3 times. I just did not think that they needed to put that particular method of death in there that many times, because it just made my skin crawl. Ugh, it was just really gross. If you've seen the movie, you probably know what I'm talking about. So that is it. Those are all the things I did in the month of October. I would love to know how your month went in the comments down below. Also, if you dressed up for Halloween, what did you dress up as? I'm so excited to take this off because I am pretty freaking hot right now. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I'll talk to you very soon. Bye!